Are you one who often lives in fear, control, worry, and anxiety? Do you fear the unknown? Are you afraid of living in the vulnerability of uncertainty? This quarter is going to focus on how to overcome fear of the unknown, how to let go of our inner controller, and how we can have more freedom in our lives, and how we can learn to have more ease and flow through our relationships and our lives without having so much anxiety. Last quarter, or the last few months, on Masks Off for People Pleasers and Perfectionists, and I am Kim Gross, your host. So, the last few months, I've been focusing around the theme of how to cultivate more meaningful relationships. Why? Because most people who wear masks and don't show up as their true, authentic selves often have relationships that are not fulfilling. This quarter, I'm now focusing on how we can tame our inner controller, how to let go of fear and anxiety so that we can have more inner peace, joy, and freedom. It's all about freedom. And that's what I write about in my book, Free to Be a Pathway to Inner Liberation. So I want to start by sharing a quote from The Language of Letting Go by Melody Beatty. It's her first edition on letting go of worry. Now, listen to the questions she asks in this journal entry. What if we knew for certain that everything we were worried about today will work out just fine? What if we had a guarantee that the problem bothering us would be worked out in the most perfect way and at the best possible time? Furthermore, what if we knew that 3 years from now, we would actually be grateful for the problem or situation and its solution? What if we knew that even our worst fear would work out for the best? What if we had a guarantee that everything that is happening and has happened in our life was meant to be, planned just for us and in our best interest? And what if we had a guarantee that the people we love are experiencing exactly what they need in order to become who they're intended to be? So, what I want to share is how this has been such a journey for me to let go of worry, fear, and anxiety. Just recently, I've been going through a situation with my daughter who is 22, and she is in the process of moving and furthering her education and moving across the country. We have been going back and forth for a while and trying to help her make this decision, which ultimately it is her decision, but just in terms of whether I was going to be able to help her and support her financially. So I definitely went to this place of real panic, real worry about how she would be able to manage making this move across the country and supporting herself and doing it on her own. And this isn't the first time that something has come up for either one of my kids, and I've gone to a place of worrying and catastrophizing and creating the worst possible scenario in my mind. Now, is it true that certain high risk situations could result in whatever my worst fear was? For example, not long ago, my son had a motorcycle. Is it true that people with motorcycles are at a higher risk for accidents, being paralyzed, or death? Yeah, it might be very true. And yet I know that I didn't have any control anyway, because if he was going to do it, which he did decide to buy one, there wasn't anything I was going to be able to do or say to prevent that from happening. I could express my concerns, but that would be the end of it. I didn't have control. The same applies to the situation with my daughter moving across the country, where I was going into all these what if situations, catastrophizing. And is there some truth to some of my fears, some of my worries? Sure, there are some reasonable concerns that I had and have still. That isn't the point. The point is that I was allowing my fear of the unknown or fear of uncertainty to take up so much mental space and energy, where I was obsessing and ruminating and worrying and just like picturing all of these horrible scenarios in my mind, which didn't help either one of us. It actually put me into a fight, flight, or freeze situation. My nervous system was dysregulated every time that I thought about it. And it was something that I didn't have control over, because at the end of the day, she made a decision that she was going to go with or without any financial support from myself and her dad. And there was nothing that we could do in that situation. The only thing we could say was whether or not we were willing to help out. Now, my point is this: there was a lot of back and forth for a long time, several months. I was going through all of these emotions, thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and behaviors because of all of the work that I've done on myself. And because I was aware of these limiting beliefs and this anxious worry, I knew what was going on in my head, that I was able to really work with all of these thoughts. I was able to work with the energy. I did a lot of inner work. I used my melody Beatty. I talked with friends. And what I ended up reminding myself over and over again was stay in the moment, stay in the day, stay in the moment. And the more I did that, the more that I trusted the universe, the more I trusted myself, the more that I just continued to have conversations with my daughter about this. And I allowed the situation to unfold naturally. I removed myself from being in the way of the universe doing what needed to happen. I kept trying to pull myself away from trying to force an outcome or solve the problem. I just started to live my life and do me and let go, right? That's what Melody Beatty calls the language of letting go. Or as Mel Robbins would say, let them. So I was letting go, let them. I was staying in the moment, staying in the day. And that did involve me being present with my emotions, my feelings, my concerns, exploring, investigating, going inward, becoming aware of my patterns, which is the first step of my 5-step power pathway. And then I was taking ownership, which is the second step of my 5-step power pathway. And I was owning my part in it. I was owning where I was being overly fearful or overly anxious, or where I wasn't listening enough to my daughter. And then I was able to feel my feelings. Like, what was the root cause? Well, there was a fear that if the shit hit the fan while she was out there, then maybe somehow I was a bad mom or I didn't do enough. It went into my perfectionism for sure was being kicked up. And so I had to work with that and feel those feelings that I might potentially feel like I wasn't being a perfect mom because I wasn't rescuing her or fixing everything for her.
Hey, it's Kim here, interrupting your regularly scheduled podcast episode to let you know about an opportunity to go deeper into this work. I invite you to head over to Amazon.com and pick up your copy of my book, Free to Be A Pathway to Inner Liberation. If you are looking to unhook from people pleasing and perfectionistic patterns, if you're looking to have a better way of identifying your patterns and then how you can unhook so you can be free to step outside your comfort zone, free to have more meaningful relationships in your life, free to be your true self without hiding behind a mask any longer. If you desire any of this, then I encourage you to pick up your copy. And if you enjoy my book as much as I loved writing it, please go on over and leave a review on Amazon. You can leave a star review or written review. Now back to your regularly scheduled podcast episode.
So there's two more patterns that I had to explore and investigate that I wanted to fix, I wanted to rescue, because that's what a controller does. We're trying to control an outcome because we're trying to fix or solve a problem. And that is a deeply rooted pattern for me from childhood, is to be solving a problem. And that's my inner controller. Throughout these next several months, I'm going to really talk about that inner controller and describe for you what the inner controller looks like, what it feels like, and how it gets in the way of us having freedom. It gets in the way of us having close, connected, intimate relationships. Because let's look at this. When my inner controller was driving the bus during this situation with my daughter, I was coming from angst and I couldn't connect. It was very difficult for me to connect from a place of my essence, from a place of my adult. And so there was a disconnection many times throughout the last couple of months. It wasn't until I started to really nurture and take care of that wounded part of me that feels like I have to fix something or rescue when I feel the uncertainty of the future, and just come back to the present moment. Another thing we can do in situations where we're afraid of the future is to visualize. You can visualize what it would feel like to be in the moment and see yourself coping with these situations in a more effective way. Another belief system I had from childhood that played into this is that I'm not capable of handling hard things or difficult things. As a child, I watched many adults in my life panic when there was a challenging moment or something scary was happening. I didn't have an adult come to me and tell me during those situations when I was scared or I was worried that everything would be okay. I don't even think that the adults in my life were aware that I was feeling so anxious and dysregulated and panicked on the inside. They were just oblivious because I didn't receive that affirmation that I was okay, everything was okay, and I was going to be all right. So I ended up just becoming very anxious as a child. And so that's why I developed all of these strategies to cope with my anxiety. That's why I became the perfectionist. That's why I became the people pleaser, and why I started to wear all of these masks. So, back to what I was saying about how you can visualize. And in this case, for me, if I were to practice this visualization technique, I could visualize myself being capable and calm and handling the situation with ease. And let's say, for example, that in the end, when my daughter does go cross country and moves, maybe shit does hit the fan. Can I believe in myself enough and her? Can I trust myself? And can I trust her? So it's about trust as well. And it's about believing in another person that we can get through it, that we will get through it. Just like the reading said when I shared it. Imagine if we had a guarantee that everything that is happening or has happened is meant to be. Like, what if it's supposed to happen? And what if there was a guarantee that the people we love are experiencing exactly what they need in order to become who they are? That was a very comforting thought for me because I continued to remind myself every time that I would get anxious about the idea of her going cross country and it not working out well for her. I would say to myself, what if this is exactly the path that she needs for her growth to become who she needs to become? Even if it's painful, even if she's suffering, what if she needs it? And what if I need it? What if I need her to go because I have to learn to let go and I have to learn to not hold on so tightly, not be enmeshed, not try to fix and not try to rescue or save. Like, what if this is here for my growth as well? So that's another tool that you can use in addition to the visualization is reframing, rewording it, looking at it from a different perspective. And I can honestly say that the more that I approach life with the mindset of how are these situations, especially the challenging ones, especially the difficult ones, or the quote unquote mistakes that we make, the wrong decisions, the wrong choices. I hate saying right or wrong or mistakes because nothing really truly is. If we look at all of them as an opportunity for growth, how is this here to help me become who I am? What is this here to serve me with? And when you can look at it from that standpoint, then that ends up easing some of that anxiety, the fear, and the worry because you know that it's happening for a reason. It's a really great tool. So, what's possible? Like, what is the paradise, if you will? We talked about the prison. The prison is living your life perpetually with this fear, fear of the unknown, fear of what is uncertain, anxiety, depression. You can go into a state of depression, but worry, angst, a dysregulated nervous system, and then you are finding ways to cope with that worry, that anxiety, that fear, and you find unhealthy ways of coping. So those are all parts of the prison of this fear of uncertainty or letting go of control. The paradise, the opposite of living in that way, is more freedom, more peace, and more joy, and confidence in knowing that you can handle things that come your way as Glennon Doyle said, we can do hard things. And that gives you strength when you can say to yourself and believe and embody that you're capable of doing hard things. You're capable of getting through tough times. And so then that allows you to flow with more ease and live more in the moment because you're not bracing for what if this happens, what if that happens. As you become more present in the moment, in your body, you're able to connect more with the people you care about. I was able to have great conversations. Not all were easy, but my daughter and I had really healthy, connected conversations. We grew closer through this experience. And now I'm more at ease with her decision to go. And I feel that no matter what does unfold during this next venture in her life, that she'll get through it and I'll get through it. So I don't have to control. And now I can be more present with her instead of being in my mind where I was swirling with fear and worry and anxiety. I'm now more in my body. That's what's possible for you when you learn to let go of the fear of uncertainty. I know it's easier said than done. Even as I say this out loud, I can hear myself say, all right, Kim, it's sometimes easier said than done. But what I will say is that it's a practice. The more you practice coming into the present moment, the more you practice coming into your body and breathing and regulating your nervous system and coming more into your parasympathetic nervous system, using my 5-step power pathway, learning to meditate and be more mindful. For years, I was working on all of these things and I still felt like I wasn't getting to the paradise as quickly as I wanted to, but that was only because my perfectionism was kicking in and I wasn't doing it all perfectly right away. But I was nonetheless incrementally getting better and better at cultivating this practice of being able to come into my body, regulate, and be more present. I hope this was helpful for you. And I'm really looking forward to this next quarter and talking more about the inner controller and how we can learn to tame the inner controller, how it does impact and apply to the perfectionist and the people pleaser. And I will unfold a lot of this for you over the next couple of months. If you found this episode to be helpful, please let me know. And if you have any questions about anything that I shared here today, you can reach out and let me know. I would love to know what your thoughts are on it.
Hey, Kim Gross here. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Masks Off for People Pleasers and Perfectionists. I invite you to hop on over to my website, kimgrosscoaching.com. Right there on the front page, there's a quiz for people pleasers and perfectionists. You can find out if you have tendencies. You can also get into my newsletter where you will be given valuable content every week on different topics I share here in the podcast. And if you really did enjoy this episode, if you found it helpful, if you found it valuable, please go to, if you're on YouTube, go and subscribe. If you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, then I invite you to leave a review. You can even do a star review. It doesn't have to be a written review. If you know of someone who can benefit from this podcast or this particular episode, please share it with them. I'll see you next time.